Hello, welcome to Square Balloon Actions and Tutorials. In this tutorial I'm going to do a recrop of this image here, and I'm also going to adjust the skin tones according to the correct cmyk values. So the first thing that we're going to do is our recrop. So we're going to get our crop tool, and I'm going to hold down shift while I make a new crop, giving a little bit more breathing space all the way around. I think that's probably alright like that. And then what I want to do is I want to stretch out some of the blanket that's already here, just to give a little bit of texture to what he's lying on. So I'll just select an area of good blanket here and copy and paste, which will mean put that on a new layer. And then I'm going to just press Ctrl T or Command T and stretch it out. I'll just stretch it all the way out. Now just stretching the pixels a little bit, and I'll just on the mask of that layer, just create a mask like that, and with a brush just going to bring back in some of the good pixels, just as close as I can, like that, and flatten down. I'm just going to do this around 3 sides. Copy, paste, stretch it down. That one's alright. And just this side. Stretch it out. Okay, so for the top bit here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint, put up to 100% opacity. I'm pressing Alt all the time just to keep the color that's keep sampling from the color that's there already. Okay, so there we are, a little bit more stretched out. I'm going to do another recrop. I'm just going to turn it ever so slightly, like that. Okay, so now we have our new crop and a little bit more blanket showing all the way around. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a radial gradient to smooth all that out. Now just before I do that, I just want to get rid of these just little folds here behind. I always like to do patchwork. If I'm using the patch tool, I like to do it on a new layer, just in case I need to mask back. So the patch tool is here, and I'm just drawing around where the little folds are and just moving them somewhere else. Do that here for these ones too. Now what I want to do for these ones here, I'll flatten that down. For these ones here, I don't want to lose these completely because I quite like those, so I'll move them for the moment. And then I'm going to bring the opacity of that back a bit, so just show through a little bit. Just don't want them, I want them to stay there, I just don't want them to be as visible, so I'm just keeping about 50% opacity on those. Okay, so once I've done that now, I'm going to make a radial gradient. So I'll flatten that down. On my new layer, I'm going to take a sample of a colour that's right up beside the baby here, and one from the corner, or probably just a good shadow colour that's already there. So I have my two colours. I'll make this a little bit lighter up beside him. So I've got my two colours now, and I'm going to go onto my gradient tool here, and I've got it set up here to radial gradient, which is what I want. And starting from where I sampled the colour from, the foreground colour from initially, I'm just going to drag out to the corner. I might make the background colour a little bit darker. Do that again. Okay, so now that's completely covered, but we'll take the visibility of that off. I'm going to go on the bottom layer, and I'm going to use my quick selection tool, which is here, and it's on plus, and I'm just going to click on the baby and drag, because I want to make a mask for this gradient layer. So once that's selected, I don't need to refine the edge because I'll be going around, I'll be masking a little bit around the edge anyway. Once that's there, I'm going to go back onto my background. I'm going to hold down Alt as I press the mask, so that means the baby will be automatically show through that. That background won't be affecting where I masked. So obviously we need to bring back in a little bit more of our blanket again. So at the moment I've got the opacity of my black brush at 100%, so I can paint onto the mask here, just all around the edge, just to bring that back in again. So once I've just gone a little bit around the outside, then I can lower the opacity, go around the next little bit, and then lower the opacity again and go around again. That just helps it fade nicely into the old background that was there. So when you've done your masking and you're happy with your masking, you can always go back onto this layer here, and just with your paintbrush you can paint. So let's say if I wanted a little bit lighter up here, I can bring some of that lightness back in again, or yeah, maybe here, bring it down, the opacity down. So you can draw on that radial gradient, you can paint over it if you want. Okay, so once we've done that, it's always a good idea if you've made a gradient to add some noise to it. So let's just go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and we'll just have 1%, and that's enough to get rid of some of the banding that you might have from a radial gradient. These colors here aren't too bad for noise or for banding, but it's always a good idea to do it anyway. So now we're going to deal with the baby's skin. Before I deal with the color, I just want to use my, let's see, I'll use my spot healing brush tool, because what I want to do is I want to just get rid of these few little dots here of uneven skin color, just on his tummy and his arm. And once I've done that, then just looking at his skin here, I can see his face is a little bit darker than the rest of them. So I'm going to use the dodge tool set to midtones. Just going to brighten up his face just a little bit. The other thing I notice is that this arm that he's leaning on down here is much darker than the one above, which often happens. So I'm going to just deal with that separately, and in order to deal with it separately, I'm going to use my quick mask tool. When you use the quick mask tool, make sure that your opacity is up at 100%. You've got your paintbrush, you've clicked that quick mask tool icon down here, and then you can just paint over it. So this is just to show you where is going to be selected. Okay. So that's selected now. You click your quick mask tool again, and you can see your selection comes up, and then you can make an adjustment brush, an adjustment layer here. So I'm going to make a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to raise the midtones of that area, and I'm also going to add just a little bit of yellow, which I do by taking out some of the blue. So you can see how that's changed that now. I'll just turn it on and off. If you feel that a similar adjustment could be applied somewhere else, you can just click on the mask, and with white you can paint in other places as well. But I think I'll leave it as it is now. Maybe just a little bit in here. It's quite a harsh shadow here. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to run my skin smoothing action, and when that's, put that up at 100% and paint over the bits that I would like just to be a little bit smoother. Just taking care just to go over the larger areas of skin and not the folds in the skin or the features. And the other thing that I'm going to run just before I deal with the rest of the colour is the red skin removal action. So I'll get rid of some of those redder areas. Okay, so now I want to deal with the colour, and by using the color sampler tool we can sample what color the skin is at the moment. And I like to sample from up here. There's always a good neutral area up here just at the forehead. If you select from the cheek you might get too many reds. If you select from a highlight you're not going to get an adequate reading either. So you want to select a mid-tone kind of color, and here is often a great place to get that. So when I put my mouse, if I click my mouse on that, up here in the top corner you can see the cmyk values. What we want is we want our magenta, and whatever our magenta number is, we want our cyan to be about half of that, which it is, that's fine, and we want our yellow just to be a little bit more than the magenta, so 3 or 4% more is fine. So let's go for that. So I like to make my color adjustments with curves, so I'm going to make an adjustment layer, a curves adjustment layer. So we need more yellow. Now blue is opposite yellow on the color wheel, so by pulling down the center the midtones of the blue, that introduces yellow. So you can see how that is bringing much more warmer skin tones now. So let's just check our numbers again. If I go on here, we can see that the magenta is 47 and the yellow is 52. So that's pretty good. So the other thing that this has brought up is by bringing in those bit more yellow into it, we can see a color cast that came from a yellow wall that was in the room over here, and you can see how that has the light from the strobe has flashed off this yellow wall and bounced back onto the baby. So we have a sort of a greeny yellow color cast. So what I want to do just to get rid of that is I will go into quick mask mode again, and I'm going to, everywhere where I see that color, that yellowy green color, I'm going to paint a little bit there. Okay, so that's for starters where I can see it, and I'm going to target that specifically with a selective color adjustment. I'm going to go into my yellows here, and I'm going to take some of the yellows out of the yellow, if you know what I mean. So you can see that that's taking that yellow cast off. If I turn it on and off, you can see how that works. So now we have a much better skin color here. I would like to take some of that yellow off that background, off the background as well. So I can just use, I can paint on the mask of that selective color layer, and I can just take some of the yellow out of that too. And then we have recrop and correct skin values using cmyk numbers for the baby's skin. Now just I see it there, the color sampler tool, it still has its little marker here, so we can just press clear up here to get rid of that. And those are guidelines on how to get correct skin color.